fuzzy. Yours is
It's,
very clear.
yours is real big on my screen. I mean, very large.
I mean, it's not clear though. There's,
I'll have to ask Bill.
Oh, ask me what?
how come my picture is not clear like yours is? Is that my
Oh,
camera? Should I clean my camera?
well, I have an extra light over my shoulder up here. That may account for some of it, but probably not. Are you using a laptop or are you using your cell phone?
A laptop.
Oh, I defer to Jim Blanchard. Don't have any answer.
No, I don't.
I'm fine. I can handle it. Let's see.
You look good anyway. Doesn't matter how blurry you are.
That's right.
And there's
Oh, that's
Mr.
Dick.
U of M.
Hi, Pete. Hi,
Hi,
Jim.
Dick.
Hi, Bill. Wait. Hi, Pete. Hi, Jim. Hi, Bill.
Hi,
Gotcha.
how you doing?
I'm well. Thank you very much.
See you back from Houston.
I I did see the parade when it went by, so I got some pictures of that. And I worked every football game. I sat in an area. Well, I was assigned to an area that had 6 elevators that we helped handicappers get into the stadium.
Ah. Other than that, was it exciting?
Yeah,
The
it
whole
was.
world was watching.
Pardon me?
I said the whole world was watching.
Yeah, I know. Every time I've seen Jim Harbaugh. I don't know if I told you this. I've seen him in church at St. Francis in Ann Arbor.
Oh,
I think, well, his daughter was in school here, and I don't know if he still has any other kids. But every time I saw him, he was always chewing gum. I'm not kidding, in church. I've met his dad and talked with him. He's a very nice guy, very affable and interacting. And his brother, who's the coach for the Baltimore Ravens, I've also met him, and my job was to be his kind of like escort. He came into a hockey game, and I had to take him there. As far as Harbaugh, I guess one time I was his bodyguard, if you will, at a basketball game. He had about 12 kids with him, and he asked me a question, and basically the reason I was there is to keep little kids away from trying to get autographs. So, but that's my encounter with him. But I mean, I was at his original press conference when he came to Ann Arbor too. So,
Were you surprised he's skipping to go to the pros?
say again?
Were you surprised he's skipping to go to the pros?
Not really. I always called him.
You know, he's been there and he's got a pretty good deal at Michigan.
Well, I don't disagree with you. If I were he, I'd just sit there. And I mean, he's got it made.
Yeah.
I used to call him Captain Moonbeam. You never know what he did. So,
when you mentioned the chewing gum, I saw on Facebook today somebody posted a thing about they were outraged that at the Grammys last night, some of the award winners were up there accepting their awards and chewing gum.
well, I just always thought of the nuns, going to Catholic school. See, and can you imagine what they, feel like if they saw you chewing gum in church? I mean, so can I just indulge me in a story about chewing? When I was in 2nd grade, I was chewing on an eraser, and I got caught by the teacher. I guess it was none because we had a, like a postulant teacher. We were by Aquinas College, so we'd get all these teachers, which we were fortunate to teach us. So she said, she asked if I was doing a race. I said yes. So she said, get up in front of the class. And so I got up in front of the class, and then she continued to teach the class. And I'm sitting there chewing and that, and about 10 minutes went by, and she finally recognized that I was still there. She forgot about me. And she said, "No, Richard, you aren't going to chew gum anymore. You take your not gum, but eraser. You take the eraser, throw it in the wastebasket, and sit down." And I said, "I can't." And she said, "Why?" Because I said I swallowed the eraser. I was so up there so long. And she was stunned. She didn't know what to say.
All right, another grade school memory since you mentioned that. You know, I was our school, St. Joe's in Muskegon, was another Dominican run organization, and in my class there were a couple of just general cut up guys. They weren't really evil or anything like that, but I can still remember that this one guy, we came back from lunch break and he had chewed up a Tootsie Roll, those big
Oh, yeah. Right.
round brown things.
Right.
And he had put it in his leg, down in the bottom of his pant. And here we all were in the front, getting ready for the afternoon thing. And for some reason, one of the sister got mad at him, and he just kind of shook his leg and out rolled this brown wad right across the front of the. Oh man, that deserved probably a couple whacks on the head for that one alone.
Yeah, but it looked like he pooped his pants.
Oh, jeez.
Gee.
That's a good one, Bill.
It was fun being in schools. Okay, I see Frank Marfia and Mike Murphy are coming on board.
There we go.
Frank Marfia twice.
He doesn't have his mic on, neither one right now.
Connecting to audio.
Hey.
There's Mike.
There's Mike Murphy.
Hey, Bill,
Hey,
thanks for being so prompt in your reply.
Right.
Okay. Now,
No.
let's see.
There's
Okay, Paul
Paul.
Banner.
Oh,
Where
happy
did
New
Frank
Year.
go? Wait a minute.
We got it.
You got it.
Mike is on. Mike Donnellly.
Okay.
There. Yeah. Mike Donnellly.
Okay. Now, let's see.
We got two Frank Marfias.
Where is
Hi,
he?
Paul.
How you doing, Pete
Hi, Paul. Hi, Mike.
and Mike?
Hey, how you doing there?
There.
Barb, Pete, how are you?
Good.
All right, which Frank Marfia we're going to see?
Take your pick, I guess. I don't know.
Who's behind door number one? There he is.
There it is.
Okay, you got me.
Frank, I don't know if you heard our earlier conversation, but you're on there twice.
I don't know how.
He's still got one more square there. Or a
That's
rectangle.
Mike Donnellly.
Hello there.
Donnellly.
I'm trying to get the video going, but it doesn't seem to be responding.
Well, sounds like you can hear us, but not see us.
Well, I see you,
Actually, I
but
can't
I
hear
don't
you.
see my picture up there.
and see you.
You do?
Well, here, I did before, but now it's,
Oh,
There's Norb.
there we
Bufka.
go. I see you now.
You do?
Bill, I see you.
this one?
Yeah.
Okay. We're trying
Okay.
to see what happened to Mike Donnellly, and I see Norb is coming on.
Oh, okay.
Can we hear Frank?
Can you hear me? I guess not. Let me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Marfia, number one. Yes, we can
Okay.
hear
You can
and
hear-
see you.
Okay. Trying to get rid of the other one, but I can't figure out how.
Can't see him, Frank, but I can hear him.
Yeah, there's two boxes. One has nothing in it, but my name. So anybody go to the funeral of the person, the priest who died recently?
I think that's this
Pete,
week.
did you-
Isn't it?
And it was here.
Father
Boza.
Boza?
Ozone.
I did not go.
Off my video.
It's not under, I didn't see it, but did it?
Norb, you were there a second ago with your camera on.
My video's not on?
No, you were on for a brief second.
Oh, see, I don't know what's wrong with this.
Okay, Mike Donnellly has entered the room. There, Norb
There's
has
Norb.
entered the room.
Enable.
Where's Mike?
Type star space.
Where's Pete? It's not there. Can you only carry 5? Or 6? There's
All right.
Norb. Hi, Norb.
Hi,
There you go.
okay.
Okay,
Oops, we lost him.
There's Pete. There we go. It's
You
just
lost
like
me again?
you blink
Yeah,
and the person
we
shows
lost
up.
you again.
Turn the
That's
camera off.
crazy.
We can hear you.
Okay,
Now
don't do
we can
anything
see
else.
you.
Text enable.
We can see you. We can hear you. Norb.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
What?
you just went away. The camera went off.
Oh, let's see.
There it's on. Okay, smile, but keep your hands off the keyboard.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Very well.
We can see you.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, my space bar turned off the speaker, the video.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember that
That's
you said
weird.
that.
That's weird. Anyway, so who's here?
I'm Dick Galant. Hi, Norb. You said
Hi.
hello to me.
Hi,
Mike Donnellly.
hi.
Pete Garthe.
Yep.
Frank Marfia.
Hey, hi.
Paul Banner.
All right.
Jim Blanchard.
Hi. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And maybe Frank should introduce himself again because he's on our screen in 2 places. One,
I know.
one
And
with this picture.
there's no picture on the other one. I can't get rid of it. I keep clicking on it to find a delete button, and there's not one there.
Hang on for a second. Let me see if I can shut that one off.
You should be able to do that.
Yeah, it should be and can't and will. Okay. I got a mute up there and
See,
up in
see if
this
you
corner.
kick someone else off too.
Nah, I don't want to try it. Oh,
Dean LaFave, is that Stash?
right. I'll bet you it
Where's
is.
Mike Donnellly?
He's here.
I'm right here.
Oh, there. Hi. It's the first time I saw you. Hi, Mike.
Greetings.
There's Gene's top of his head, whoever that is.
Okay, he's connecting to audio. That's not Stash.
No,
Uh,
It limits only how many people you can watch on this one. Or-
now there's unlimited.
this makes us smaller.
Yeah.
The person who's logging in as Gene LaFave or LaFave. We can only see the top of your head from like your eyes up. And it doesn't sound like your volume is on, your sound is on.
Sounds like Dennis. Dennis LaFave.
Hi, Norb.
Hi, you are there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Okay.
got in.
Okay. Ooh. No, wait a minute.
No.
Norb.
Norb, where did you go, Norb?
You touch the space bar,
All right.
now you're back.
My back.
Space.
I
Yes.
got my wife's
crazy.
name up here. It's her.
I'm-
It's her internet. So
I'm not on mute, right?
There
Correct.
you are.
That's the problem. Okay. Can I put myself on mute?
No, don't touch the keyboard.
Oh, yeah,
We
okay.
got you.
All right. I like to be on mute when I'm on Zoom,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but with a small group, I suppose it's okay.
Boy, ain't technology great?
Yeah.
Dick asked
Um,
about James Bozon's funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting
I don't-
obituary. I didn't know him, but it said he went to San Antonio.
I did. I saw
Did
that.
it say for theology?
Yeah. Yeah, I read that too. I do not know. I do not remember him at all.
I remember the name. He was buried at St. Isidore's. They used to have a huge number of people in the seminary from St. Isidore's at one time.
Oh,
And there was a Monsignor there, Monsignor Petrashik, I think his last name was. And then it seemed like no one came from there anymore. But that was where my father grew up and went to school there, and that was their parish in Grand Rapids, St. Isidore's. But it had an interesting history that they built the expressway and it divided the parish. And he wrote a book about it. It had a kind of a social effect on how it, like the communications and whatever in the whole Polish area kind of I don't know, I would say waned after the expressway. I mean, it's still there. The church is right on the expressway almost. I mean, the foundation is right abuts it.
wow.
yeah, I grew up in that church.
Who was that?
Monsignor Denny LaFave.
Oh, I got you, Denny. Yeah.
Yeah, Monsignor Petrashik. We moved in there. We were the only non-Polish family in 5 square blocks. So,
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Yeah.
so Petrashik,
On
Been a ring.
on the where Lisinski's had their drugstore, right? On Michigan
Oh, yeah.
and Diamond
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
across the street in that high house, that's where my grandfather
yes, that
lived.
was our house.
Oh, wow.
That was it. It's still there, I think.
No,
And that-
it's a gas station now.
No,
It's a-
they made a gas station off the hill.
Well, the house is right across the street from the drugstore.
No, this is on the towards Diamond. What direction would be that? I guess that'd be
Yeah,
south.
on Diamond. The drugstore was on the corner of Michigan and Diamond.
That's right. And then if
And
you went
across-
to Michigan and Fuller, there is a gas
Oh, yeah.
station there now. That's my grandfather owned that. That
Oh.
no, that corner.
Well, Lazinski's lived across the street on
Right.
in a big, huge 2-story house. And now that's a gas station. The big
But
house
that
is
house,
gone.
my uncle, I think, lived in by the railroad tracks across from the. There was a hall there. I can't
Diamond
remember.
Street Hall.
Diamond Street Hall. Yeah, my dad used to go there all the time to play cards. All his buddies grew up there, in that area. So
Yeah, I drive by there once in a while. I don't even hardly recognize the area, but we knew the barber shops and the meat
Yeah.
stores and all that whole area has changed.
wow. Well, there used to be a dairy there too, at
Yep,
Booth Dairy.
Booth Dairy.
Oh,
Mhm.
Then we moved
There.
over to we moved then to St. Thomas Church area.
I know what you're
After
talking about now. Yeah, okay.
seventh, eighth
Where did you
grade.
live there?
On Lakeside Drive by Marywood Academy.
Okay, because I lived on lived on Alton Street that ran right into Aquinas College on Fulton, and then we moved to where
Yeah.
the Jewish synagogue was on Lawndale. The street
Sure.
didn't go through. My sister went to Marywood. That's the only, I thought, most extraordinary thing that on my street, 2 houses away was a Jewish synagogue. Across the street was the Aquinas College, and then there was a field in the parking lot to Mayfield Christian Church,
Mm.
Reformed Church.
Yeah.
All 3 faiths were within about a 2 or 3 minute walk from my house.
Yeah, wow.
You know where Romance
Ecumenical.
Gardens is?
Say again?
Remember where Romance Gardens was?
Yes, I remember that.
We lived right next door.
Oh, okay.
Because I get a call at 5 a.m. from Father Wilson at Murderwood saying, "Come on, Den, the sister so and so passed away. We're having a funeral this morning." So I had to go over and serve mass at Murderwood. And I worked at Murderwood for like 2 years while I was in the
Wow.
seminary.
Mhm.
You know,
Hi,
they
Frank.
trusted seminarians with their girls, right?
Well, Frank Murphy's sister was whatever they call it, but the chief nun at one time of Marywood. Carmelita.
Sure. My 3 sisters went there. And
Yeah,
my
my
cousin
sister
was
went
done
there.
there. Yeah.
I think
When
her
were you
name
in
was
seminary, Denny?
Sister Big Kahuna.
Refresh my memory where St. Isidore's is. I know
It's
you
on
said.
Diamonds. Well, no, what's the street? It's not on, well, it's on Diamond, isn't it? The school is kind of at the other street. I don't know what the name of that street is. It's across the street from Maxim's grocery store, isn't it?
So it's pretty close to Aquinas.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, okay.
it's about a mile.
Yeah, right. That's close, considering how big.
Well, that way, yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I meant.
But
well,
the way Grand Rapids was set up, it was pretty much ethnically divided in the sense the parishes. If you said you went to St. Isidore's, everybody would assume you were Polish.
Yep.
If you went to Lady of Sorrows, you were Italian, and St. Thomas, I guess maybe Irish. I don't know. I mean, it was pretty just set up that way. That's the way the west side was all Polish and German.
That's
There were
right.
some German Lithuanians.
Ran into Frank Fallon. He was at St. Thomas.
Who's that?
And Mike Whalen.
Yeah, I
The
like
Clef-
Mike Whalens. They had about 5 boys, I think. Yeah, I remember Mike Whalen.
Yeah, Frank had 8 brothers and sisters by Wilcox Park.
Yep.
you
Boy,
know,
those were days.
Hunter,
I ended up going to both schools, ended up in 2 class reunions.
Well, Denny, when were you in the seminary?
1955, I believe.
yes.
Just 1
Then
year?
the 3rd year I got very sick. Ended up with Asiatic flu.
Ooh.
Mm.
And they took me out of there, carried me to the hospital. And I came back after 3 weeks, and Felicki wanted me back in there right away. And the doctor says, "No way. And hell, he's too sick." But I had to go back, and everybody was sick. The whole place was throwing up. Went back, got some clothes out of the place. Unbelievable. You walk up the dorms, there were trails of throw up all the way to the bathrooms. The guy would go and throw up, and then he'd go back to his bunk, play cards.
I know. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. We had no. I remember one day we had no classes. We were all in our beds, and I was in one of those rooms on the east end of 3rd floor. There were just 2 bunk beds in there, and
Yeah.
Doug Rubin was my roommate, and we sat there and played cards and talked all day. because neither one of us was very sick.
You were lucky.
Yeah.
I got to St. Mary's and the whole place. I mean, you talk about the lately flu. All beds were full. Everybody was full.
Mhm.
You guys remember Tom Fitzgerald? Anybody remember him? He was in our class too back then.
Tom
And
Fitzgerald.
his
Okay.
sister was a nurse, and she took me underneath her wing at St. Mary's. Back rubs and plenty of food. You know, the seminarians got pretty good treatment when they got sick.
Speaking of getting sick, um, Joe Fodor, I think he graduated in 77 or 78, somewhere around in there. He just sent me a yearbook for 1977. And right at the beginning, where they're having the introducing the staff, there was a note that Sister Christopher had passed away. I think, I don't remember the exact date. I thought it was like in March or something like that. So just a little brief recap of her in there, that she'd been there for ages. It just seems like almost every one of us, that's the only we all knew Sister Christopher.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was fortunate enough to work for her for 4 years.
Right.
Infirmarian. That was. Can I tell you a funny story about her?
Sure.
This kind of happened in the spring. Pete Thalen, I don't know if you remember him. I think he was.
Yeah, Roger Phelan, sure.
Yeah.
He was playing baseball. He was kind of a little guy, and he got knocked. They were going for a foul ball, and he kind of, in a sense, got knocked silly. So they took him to the infirmary, and he became just wild. He was like an animal, and they had to hold him down.
Wow.
And he was just going bananas, and Sister Christopher was trying to give him a pill, kind of to set him down. I thought, yeah, that's kind of stupid. He could choke.
Mm-hmm.
And well, anyways, I think they eventually took him to the hospital. He must have had a concussion. I mean, he really got hit hard. He might have hit his head against another guy's head. I'm not sure exactly there, but Sister Christopher was something was wrong with her hip, and she kind of limped. And she used to put her hands against the wall to support herself and walking. It was kind of a narrow walkway, in the infirmary, the terrazzo floor and all that. And one time, somehow a door closed and cut off part of her top of her finger.
Oh my.
And this happened before. I used to report to the infirmary like 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and then before classes or something. And somebody walks up and runs up and is going to the wastebasket, and found out that they were looking for her finger because they wanted to sew it back on, I guess, or try to. I mean, the entire finger was off.
Oh my gosh.
So anyways, they sewed it back on. But in the episode with Thalen, I thought that, she already had lost her finger. I thought that he could bite it off. I mean, he was just like a rabbit animal. I've never seen anybody like that. Unfortunately, he didn't. But she was a really good person.
Yeah.
She was, but she darn near killed me.
Yeah.
I ended up with in the dorm. First of all, the side story is, remember the radiator in the hall?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, bang bang.
She would come out with a bunch of thermometers, and we would come on the radiator, make sure we had a high temperature. But she didn't understand how some guys had a temperature of 110, 115, till she finally caught on what was going on. That way we got our classes and got them in there for a little while. But when I was in there, she put me in the room, and then, fresh air. This is wintertime almost. Opened all the windows up, and I was shaking like a leaf. I ended up with Molesky walked in there and I had double pneumonia on top
Oh,
of
no.
avian flu. Yeah. So she darn near killed me.
Jeez.
I have a question for Dick Galant.
What?
How did you get to be in the infirmary, Dick? Did you choose it? Were you selected?
No, they had each year the classes they had like there was infirmarian and there was a sacristan and
Master ceremonies.
Yeah,
That
Say
was
again?
me.
but how did you get to be infirmarian?
they chose me. I didn't
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
have anything to do with it. They just
Okay.
selected me.
Yeah, okay.
And they had like I think 4 positions. What was the one, Paul, you said?
Uh,
Master ceremony?
Master ceremonies.
What
That
did
was
they
me.
do?
Right.
Didn't you have maintenance and like store as well?
Yeah, there was, yes, I didn't get, yeah, I think Bill Gebhardt had an appointment like that when he was at that level. And you started like when you were in 3rd year, I think.
Yeah.
And then you basically kept the position for the 4, if you know.
As long as you
Right.
stayed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. As long as you were there, I guess is the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting. I gave shots, which really surprised me. I mean, I
Whoa.
gave a lot of penicillin shots. I'd never done it in my life, but he kind of showed me, and then that's the way you did it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the way they trained you, and as you progressed, you
Yeah.
picked up additional skills and confidence, and
Right.
Jerry Willing was infirmarian in my class.
Yeah. Jim Masuga, I remember, was, and
I remember Jim. What year was he?
he was, let me see,
Younger
2
than
years
me.
ahead. Yeah, he was 3rd year when I was 1st year. He became a counselor at the University of Detroit.
Oh, okay.
I know that. I never saw him after that, but I know he did because
Yeah.
my brother somehow went through law. He went to law school at University of Detroit and interacted or something with Jim Masuga.
Mm. Mhm.
So then here's another question. It's not about infirmary. It's about the newspaper, the recorder.
Right.
How did you guys get to be on the recorder? What was your decision? Were you selected? Did you join? Did they ask for volunteers? Because I never joined, and I maybe I didn't want to join.
I was, and I think Mike Donnellly, you were an editor at one point, weren't you?
Yeah, I don't know how that happened though.
Huh.
I mean, I'm a good proofreader,
My
but
experience or my memory, and of course we all know how those memories are
Yeah.
these days,
Right.
but somewhere along the line, I think it was Terry Stewart was the editor at
That's
that
right.
point. And somebody somehow asked, or I don't know if they asked or I was just told to do it. I started working there, laying out headlines. Now, I don't know how many of you know this or how those headlines in some of the early editions were made. This was long before word processing.
Cut and paste, isn't it?
Yeah, we would cut from a book. We would cut out the letters, each letter, and it had an underscore across the bottom of it. And that's how you lined up so that they were all on the same plane.
Wow.
And then you had to, figure out on your own the vertical, like, or how thin or how wide you had to make that letter. And then we would sit there at this big, like, a layout desk, and we would use rubber cement to cement the letters in place. And that was my introduction to rubber cement. So after that, and I can't remember what year it was, but then the next thing I knew, I was assigned to be a typist. And my career in journalism is, I didn't know how to type. So at some point I went to like a stationery store in Muskegon and picked up one of these books, learn to type in 10 days or something like that, 10 lessons. I didn't have a typewriter. So when I got back to the seminary, we started poking around in some of the old storage closets, and at one of them, probably it was probably the second floor behind all of those other work areas. That's where they left a lot of junk, and including some really old typewriters. We're talking about those big upright black and white, I don't know, Remington or something like that. So I had my book and a typewriter, and so I taught myself how to type. But I never mastered the numbers across the top. So even to this day, I have to, I have to hunt and peck to find the numbers.
Do you use
And
their
then-
toes too?
Pardon?
Do you use your toes too? Never mind.
But the next big technological breakthrough came when somebody somehow we got an IBM Selectric
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
with those little balls on the top.
Right. Yeah.
And that was the non-correctable. This was the early ones that came out. So you couldn't do like you can do the later editions, you just backstroke and type white over the letters. This was, but the advantage, it was a nicer typeface and cleaner. So that,
Right.
but that was the next big technological breakthrough for me. Now, at
So,
some
so
point,
did various members of the group that was working on the paper have assignments. Pete, you were listed as a reporter for sports.
Yeah, I think, I was the athletic director, and so they probably just appointed me to be the
Appointed you,
sports writer.
I was on sports too. I know, because I don't know how I got on it, but I got on it.
And then I have this question about what there's one of the titles of the group is an alumni. Does that mean that they were responsible for keeping in touch with ex seminarians or priests who moved on? What does alumni mean? It lists all your duties, and one of them is alumni.
well,
Then the guys that had moved on to major seminary.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I'm
think
wondering.
so. Yeah, I think so.
some of those
What-
early or back issues, they featured, depending, I guess, on who was in charge of alumni, it would feature like an update on who is doing what in the
Major seminary.
in the major seminary.
Who left the minor seminary? Okay, moved on.
Right.
What time period you talking about?
Pardon? Say again?
What time period are you referring to?
My days in the seminary were 60 to 66 in the minor seminary. So I guess I was reading the various editions that you posted. Thank you, Bill, for posting all those recorder editions.
Well, that's what I
that's
meant. I don't remember, I don't remember keeping track of alumni when I was there as a student, but later I think they did. They made it more important to reach across all students who were there, because we were.
Were they mailed? Were the copies mailed to these persons who were now alumni? Or
Oh,
I guess I should ask Albert, because I noticed Albert Wamhoff he's not on the call tonight, but he was listed as an alumni. That was one of his assignments, alumni.
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know. I lost track of who it was that had all those really old alumni or the recorders. He lives in Saginaw. But anyway, the ones that he sent over, some of them had mailing addresses on the back. Like when he was in the, there was another, I think it was a cousin of his that lived in the Saginaw area or something like that. And it looked like his was mailed to his home rather than to his address in a seminary. So I'm assuming that the alumni guy somehow might have been involved in keeping track of what mailing addresses are taking care of mailing these things out.
Sending out copies. Okay. I mean, that makes
Right.
sense.
I think that they may have mailed them to parents at one time. I
Oh,
don't know. If that
Oh,
was-
yes, they did. I
Well, they
remember
must have,
that.
Jim, that would kind of get the parents kind of engaged. It seems that makes sense to keep them engaged so that we,
Right.
you didn't leave in
Right.
September or August, and then we never saw you till, November, that
Right.
that their life was actually going on.
Right. Wow.
Mike
guys
Donnellly,
familiar?
when you were doing that, what was the circulation like, or what was your experience?
Well, I'm trying to remember how I got picked to be on the on the recorder. One of the things I think was behind it was during composition classes, everybody liked to hear my papers. They were funny and engaging, and so we had to turn in an assignment. I'll say, "Oh, read Mike Donnelly's paper." So I'm thinking that might have been, I had a choice of getting that or Pulitzer Prize, and I
It was
chose
based on your talent.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Paul.
I don't. I'm not. It sounds like none of you ever did this job, but in my third year, my junior year in the high school, I was selected to be in charge of the bulletin board. I think Father. Well, I'm not sure which one, either Ancona or Father Rose, selected me to be in charge of the bulletin board, and I had a staff of 3 classmates, but not from my class, from the lower classes assigned work with me. So we were tasked with putting up 3 or 4 times a year a major display on that big giant bulletin board just outside the study hall.
Right.
As you left it just to the right, there was a giant bulletin board. It must have been I'm thinking 8 feet long by 3 feet high, or even bigger, maybe.
Wow.
And it must have been an art room, maybe where you guys worked on the paper, where we had all this material, where we had to, we could enlarge letters. We could take, things from religious magazines or any kind of magazine. We could put a device over it and shoot it on the wall and make the letters bigger, so that they would be bigger than what they were in the actual newspaper or the story. So that when we put them on the bulletin board, they dominated it. So there was an effort. Maybe we might have spent as many as 8 or 10 12 hours to get each version of whatever we mounted on the bulletin board. But none of you actually had this job before, right? This was not something. So apparently one person got selected every year, and I only did it for 1 year. And then the next year when I moved over to St. Henry's, it was given to somebody else.
I don't remember the bulletin board even.
Oh, you don't remember the bulletin board?
When you walked into the main stairway, it was to the right, because
It was to the
across
right.
was the
I
reading
understand
room.
where it was. Yeah. I don't remember seeing it though. Huh.
Well, they used to pin the results of the Catholic university exams that you took. They'd have
Oh, my.
posted up there.
Okay. Huh.
And this Bill Jagerliner, I remember I would use that. Both the bulletin board at St. Henry's and the main one in the main building, I would post up there, like who was on duty for different masses.
Oh,
or,
yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sure.
And I remember somehow there was some kind of messaging going back and forth between, I want to say, Elmer Budnick. Was that his name?
Budnick.
Now, there was
Budnick.
I remember the name Budnick.
Close.
Elmer.
I thought it was Emil. Maybe it was Elmer. I don't know.
Yeah, it was Elmer. He had a younger brother, Bill. They were from Lake Leelanau.
Oh, okay.
Emil Bonnick.
Oh, Emil Bonnick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was something at one point going on, a little rivalry between him and Father Zaskowski about the first time there was going to be snow or something along those
Oh,
lines.
okay.
And I think at some point, I remember Father Zaskowski putting a note on there, attention, it was snowing this morning, something like that. So the bulletin board was used for posting just other messages back and
yeah, absolutely.
forth.
It was all kinds of uses. It wasn't just this religious display 3 or 4 times a year. There was all kinds
Right.
of information on the bulletin board.
Okay.
Was anybody in charge of the reading rooms? Or did that
Where
just
were they, Bill?
Didn't they have librarians? There was, well, it was right across from the bulletin board, right outside the study hall
Oh, okay.
there. But what about the library too on the 3rd floor?
Well, I worked in the library for a year for Father Rose. I remember doing that, but I believe it was 1 year.
It was
And
so small.
it was,
I'll tell you a story about that library. Frank Fallon. Does that name sound familiar to you guys?
Yes,
Sure, yeah.
I went to
Well,
school
Frank-
with his sister.
Frank was a genius of a student. He got a Fulbright scholarship to Washington, the University of Washington, from the seminary, and that's never was heard of before. But Frank was in charge of the library for a while, and we would go and get some books. And I got a book about Greek mythology. Well, that was great, except that it was full of naked pictures of eating orgies, okay? And it showed gals laying back like this and having grapes put down their throat, And finally, I thought, holy crap, So I took it back to the library, and I told Frank, I says, hey, Frank, this is kind of a neat book. Look at it. He says, how in the hell did you get that? That's restricted for upperclassmen. And I thought, oh my God, I didn't know those guys learn that kind of stuff, But Frank and Mike Whalen and Frank Fallon and myself were at St. Thomas, and they were my close friends. And they both approached, they said, well, Den, Mike and I, we're going to St. Joe's Seminary. What do you think? You want to go? I says, okay. A lot of thought, Okay, I'll go. Well, my dad, I'm going to seminary next month, He shook his head in wonderment, And then I flunked the first year, repeated it. Then I flunked 2 courses. You flunk 2 courses, you repeated the year. The second year, I passed them. The third year, I got sick, and Monsignor Felicki and I had a talk. He said, maybe it's a sign, God's giving you a sign that you don't belong here, But one hobby, I was a real pest from that seminary kind of saved my life, because I used to raise a lot of hell back in the Diamond Avenue, St. Isidore's Church area. Anyway, we used to make paper wads. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Spitballs, paper wads.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And then at night we'd pop each other, right? Well, I got called to Felicki's office. He says, and they went into my bed and found about 100 of these paper wads, all pre-made. He had them on his desk. He says, what is the meaning of all this? What is the meaning of all this? I said, well, Monsignor, I said, every time I made a paper wad, I said a Hail Mary. And that way, when I shot somebody, they received a Hail Mary. The first time I ever saw that man choke up, I finally said, okay, don't ever do it again. Get out of here. And I heard him laugh inside, like, he didn't believe that. It was just something.
Gee, why didn't he believe that?
Yeah. And poor Mike Whalen. You guys remember Joey Bishop?
Yes.
Senior Bishop?
Yeah.
Well, he had the job of weeding people out for sexual, gays, whatever you want to call it. And he used to pick on Mike Whalen all the time. Every 2 weeks, we used to say, he would stand there and go like this. And we used to say, oh, guess what? Mike got the finger again. or so-and-so got the finger from Joey again, you know? And that was his job, was to weed people out. But poor Mike. Yeah, and Mike is not, but he's a very gentle person, very gentle person. And he went on to become a pharmacist,
Right.
and a very prominent pharmacist in downtown Grand Rapids at Drosky Ferguson Hospital, and then in
Wow.
Muskegon. I see him once in a while. I call him once in a while. But he was also connected with Marywood to go to the church there. They had a mass there, and the singing was absolutely beautiful. But they hired me in because I was a seminarian, and seminarians don't look at girls. But when I would serve mass for Father Wilson, remember the days they used to use the paten then?
Mm-hmm.
Remember they used to put a paten down so they case the hopes. So a couple of girls in that place I was dating, and then when I go to the paten, I hit them in the throat. You know,
Oh,
paten, and they about choked, but they cracked up. You know, and Wilson never caught on to that. So many of funerals, and then Sister Christopher called me, come over and get the truck. So we went over there, and they had a barn, and I could drive at the time. I must have been 18. I had to be. So we would go down Division Avenue to all these little food shops down there. They had a lot of chicken stuff going on, and they would come out with big buckets of chicken and fill that truck up, and we take it back to Marywood, you know, and empty it. And that's how they cooked. They cooked fantastic cooks. God, they can make bread that's just unbelievable. Then one day there was a train wreck down on the cracks by Diamond Avenue, and we had to go down there, and they insurance the whole car. We had a whole box car full of applesauce that lined the whole place, the basement, every place was applesauce. They used to give it away. What did they do? But they took that's what they did, was donations of that place. And my cousin was Sister Pierre, and she lived there, and she got finally, they asked her to leave because on the third floor of Marywood, she would climb out the window and sitting down the pine tree and go to the store and get pizza. Pizza was just invented at that time. That's when pizza first came out. But Mike and Frank ended up being an attorney. His dad was an attorney.
right.
And he ended up being a very prominent attorney of St. Paul, Minnesota. In fact, they often said, I know people that lived there. They said that Mr. Fallon helped rebuild St. Paul, Minnesota, and then he left, and his wife then the last few years ago passed away, and Frank he remarried, and George, you know, Norb knows him, Frank. Real well. We met his new wife and everything.
Oh, yeah. Buddy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, I can tell you an interesting story about Frank Fallon because he went to Catholic University
Right.
and he was in some seminary, and he stayed on her. And anyways, he was one of the contestants on College Bowl when it was the old College Bowl.
Right.
And they asked him, or somehow they asked the question about the meaning of an alpha privativa. And here's someone that had studied classical Greek for 5 years. And that was like, well, I didn't say, but he missed the question. That was amazing because you know, of his study in that, he'd be pretty rare to even study classical Greek and be on the College Bowl. But they had his sister was in my his sister was in what do you call it? In my class, they had, I think, about 6 kids or so. They came from New York City. I remember when they came to the parish. So
Yeah, they had 8 kids.
8, okay. I knew it's 6 or
His brother ended up being class president at Catholic Central for
Right,
the
Eddie
class of
Fallon.
1960.
yeah,
That was Eddie.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was a
Hey,
bright,
Very,
Denny.
very smart family.
Yeah.
Denny, you said your cousin was Sister Pierre?
Yeah,
She was my teacher in Traverse City, 8th grade.
Wow.
really?
Is she from Rockford?
She must be.
Yes.
Wow.
Do you know if
Yep.
she's still alive?
Yeah, she lives out, I believe,
Really?
in Texas
Arizona.
now. Her
Okay, out
brother,
west.
How
her
old is
brother
she?
ended up being the chief manager of a casino in Louisiana, and he told her to come out here and and live out here. So I haven't heard anything else, but she was, I'm 83. She must be close to 90 about this time. And then at Marywood, there's still a nun there that was our 8th grade school teacher, Sister Verona. And she,
Yeah, she was a principal of St. Thomas.
yes,
I remember her.
yep. And she took me under her wing. I didn't know I had this, but I had narcolepsy. Now, are you guys familiar with narcolepsy? Is sometimes you just fall asleep.
Fall asleep.
Mhm.
So in her 8th grade class with Frank and Mike, she used to come over and shake me and make me run around the school building on the outside. Come back in, and she really became a good friend, good buddy. So when I was working at Marywood, I'd redo their floors, and they shine like a nickel when I got done. But she'd come down and come say hello once in a while, and said, Den, some people are made to work with their hands, and some with their minds. She says, you do an excellent job with your hands. Okay. Yeah. But she was a sweetheart, yeah.
Hey, before
That's
we
'cause you
leave,
do it all the time. You don't have to pay anybody. She had to do it.
Yeah.
that obituary for Father Furlong, was that his name?
Boson.
Ozon.
Oh,
Ozon.
okay. And I can't even remember who sent me the official one that appeared in the Grand Rapids Press, but it clarified and I noted this in the version that I circulated, that he was responsible for building shrines in all of the parishes or wherever he had been assigned. And he was the one during his tenure, I think it was like just a 2-year tenure at the seminary, that he built a shrine that was behind the old St. Henry's Hall. Now, most of us that would have been like in the early 70s or mid 70s when he was there. So,
Bill, because it was after I was there.
It was? I don't even remember anything there. Okay.
well, I remember it only because I read the application when the seminary was being named to the National Register of Historic Places. And the person that they hired to do the historical analysis of everything on the property had mentioned this and had sent along a photograph and was speculating about how it showed up because nobody knew at that point. It was there and gone, and nobody knew exactly who did that until this obituary came along that noted that his background was he was the son of a stonemason, and he installed some of these little grottos and statues, in just about every parish that he was affiliated with, and including, it said, St. Joseph Seminary. So another little piece of history has kind of fallen into place in the whole process. Well, I have.
I remember that he had been stationed at St. Francis in Holland, where I grew up, and I don't remember exactly how much overlap I had with him for meeting him, but I can't say that I spent any significant time with him.
And I see he was also at Sacred Heart in Muskegon. Now, I was going to check with my brother because the time that he was there was probably, I mean, it was after I had moved on, but my brother was a member of that parish for a number of years. So it's kind of interesting how our collective lives kind of are intertwined in all these different in ways. Now, while I have Jim Blanchard there, Jim is the one who has spent a lot of time over at the diocesan archives, digging out a lot of the old recorders. And I know Norb had mentioned at one point that they were all there somewhere. And we found out that I think it was Jim that talked with Angela, and yeah, they were there all in boxes, but nobody had kind of gone into them. Is that what? Is that Jim? Is that what?
Yeah.
Wow.
What was your question, Bill?
Well, was my version? Are you the one that told me that all the recorders were in boxes and you started going
Yes.
through those?
Yes. And they have them going back to early 20s. It wasn't the recorder, it was called something else, but she's got all of those in the archives. So it's a pretty amazing fountain of information there.
Yeah.
No. What about the later years? I mean, I think we had some of them from the 70s, but I forget what the last one was. The reason that I got the impression that at some point, and in fact, if it was in one of the things that you sent over, the general philosophy behind the recorder in its early years and back to the 50s and long into the 60s was that they were going to be sharing these issues with alumni. And so a lot of those stories related to alumni and where they were. But at some point, and I can't think of who was the editor, it was a couple of years after we left in the probably even after Mike Donnellly had left. Was it Carl Acapenti?
Yeah, Carl.
Penny.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Penny.
I think when he took over, a decision was kind of made to report less on what was going on within the seminary and among the graduates and deal more with sort of the spiritual and commentary on what was taking place within the church as a whole and how that was kind of affecting what was going on in the seminary. So anyway, was really helpful in looking at some of those from the years beyond the 60s. And so I think I prepared a chart about, I didn't even know when they stopped issuing the recorder, but that's
I'll
been
have
really
to look to see what the last issue was that Angela has, Bill, because there are
Okay.
still a number of them that I have to get that you had on your list.
right. Now that is also, I guess here's another task that would be we could assign to you and maybe somebody else. The yearbooks. As I meant, we now have 3 issues. 77 and 78, I think it was called the Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, it changed names. I can't remember. If I looked online, I'd know what it was. But somebody has sent me a note saying, for 2 years it was called the Horizon, but then the next 4 years
When I was there.
it was what?
Beckoner.
Beckoner. Right. That's what it was.
When were you there?
When was the last class at St. Joe's Seminary? And when do they finally close it up? The last class.
The seminary closed in 81.
81?
81.
Okay.
But
Because we
It was
Oh,
not.
My
a
wife and I
seminary.
sponsored a family from Kosovo back in the 90s, and the city had taken over the seminary as a welfare park for refugees on the second or second floor. In fact, it was practically back by Sister Christopher's old office. And when we went in there to help get information. The upper stories were vacant, but
Right.
nobody would go up there because they said that Senior Joe, okay, was wandering the halls up there, and there was people said that they went up there and wondered who that priest was walking the hall. It was Father. Okay, so I went up there one time and I didn't run into him. I didn't run into Father Bishop, but the walls were decorated with all the class pictures of graduates up there on the hallways. And so and then I left. I never went back up there again. But that was really strange. That
Could I ask a question? When they closed in 81, I'm just curious, how many students were in the seminary at that time? Do you know?
There were
back when I was there in the 60s, there were like 250.
no,
Yeah.
there were never that many. The number was, I don't think, ever more than about 200.
200?
But anyway,
No, but in
Yeah.
81,
going
when
back to your question, I want to elaborate on that a little bit. At some point, and I don't remember the exact year, it ceased being a seminary and it became a boarding school for boys. And they could actually leave and date. Okay. So when I say it closed in 81, that's when that closed. It really was not a seminary at that point.
All right.
So I think maybe as much as 10 years earlier, 71, 72, somewhere in there when they decided to change it to a high school, a boarding high school. Now, of
It was
course,
later than that.
they promoted. Pardon me?
It was later than that because I graduated in 71 and I
Okay.
know built seminary
Okay.
for several years following
Okay.
that.
Okay, so mid-70s, maybe. Yeah, I don't remember the date. I don't know if I ever found it, actually.
Who was teaching there?
Who was teaching?
Who was teaching in the high school that, because the priest still taught classes then, the class?
Yeah, we had eight or
They
nine
did?
priests in there. when we were there.
Actually,
Say
no.
again, 9?
In that last period, they actually went to Catholic Central and took classes. They boarded the bus.
Or
in the
they
morning.
bus them to, they slept there and bused them to Catholic Central?
The bus system in Grand Rapids is pretty good. So they just
Oh, they
boarded-
use the bus system. Oh, okay, but
Yeah, right. And
why
went
would I
to-
want to live there unless you came from, I don't know, just like Greenville or something like that, Sand Lake or,
Well, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, and then at night they would have activities and of course they would promote the priesthood, but
yeah,
it wasn't restricted to that anymore.
yeah.
And I remember reading at some of the nuns from Aquinas came over and put on a what do you call that? What was popular in this? Oh no, I'm going back too far. Oh my gosh. Anyway, some rowdy entertainment, which of course was
What, a hootenanny? Or something?
forbidden. Yeah, hootenanny. That's the word I'm looking for.
My
Yeah.
God.
The one by priest I was talking about was Father John Tomey, who
Yeah.
just
Father
passed
John.
not too long ago.
Yeah.
Ended up being a buddy of mine. We would make sure I would even go over to like down by Wayland, they would have 3 or 4 priests come in for confessions.
Mhm,
And I'd drive all the way down there just to see him.
mhm.
But that was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Then we had Monsignor Flicky, we had Father Zudema. Everybody remember that name?
Oh yeah, I
I
remember.
remember the name. I didn't know what he was.
I do.
Well, he ended up leaving the priesthood and ended up in Vietnam.
Jeez.
He went and volunteered to go to Vietnam in the late 60s.
Wow.
Wasn't
I
he
heard
a
he's
chaplain?
I thought he went there as a Green Beret and was, if I'm remembering the same guy, and he was basically like a chaplain to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
I hear he's still alive. He lives down south someplace.
Jerry, an interesting story about St. Isidore's and how it got its name. Originally, when they built the church, there was a huge argument between what became St. Isidore's and St. Adalbert's about naming the church. And so whoever the bishop was at that time, he chose St. Isidore's as kind of because he was if you notice in Father Bozong's thing, it said this, that he was a Spanish farmer. But that's how it got its name. So it doesn't have kind of like a Polish connection,
Right.
like the other parishes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
I remember when the priest was ordained from St. Isidore's, they had a big party, and they literally marched from St. Isidore's all the way down Diamond Avenue with acolytes, and the whole parish followed this priest all the way down, because he lived on Diamond Avenue. I can't remember his name now, but that was really was quite an affair. Like at 300 people marched with him down Diamond Avenue, down to Michigan, down toward Bob Lazinski's dad's drugstore.
mm-hmm.
You remember Bailiff's funeral home?
Yes.
My dad knew that the bailiff. He was like the local gossip for the whole area there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hate to say this, but I got to get going. So good being with you tonight, guys.
Same here, Norm. It was nice
See you,
to see you.
Norb.
Farewell.
Keep
So,
well.
Bill, I have a question about a story that I read in the recorder. Honestly, it blew my mind because it mentioned Fenville, Michigan. That's my hometown.
Right, yeah.
And I have no recollection. Father Leo Roslaniak was apparently assigned to the parish in
Yeah.
Doug,
Yeah, that's right.
and
We used
he
to call
held
him Pancho.
some kind of event in Fenville, a mass or a gathering.
I went down with him for that mass.
Pardon?
I went down with him for that mass.
You did,
I think
okay.
it was related to our Spanish class.
Right, he was our instructor, Spanish instructor. Dr. Father Leo was.
Yes.
Roslaniak.
Yeah, his nickname was Pancho.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but his father Zuma, he was Cisco. So guys would mumble. They would come in the cafeteria. They say, "Hey, Cisco, where's Pancho?"
Jeez.
Undercurrent.
Well, going on a little bit about Frank, your comment about Father Leo and an article in the recorder. There was the one that I can remember was about some sort of labor problem that had cropped up, and it could have been in Fenville or near Fenville, but it was the Spanish-speaking laborers who worked in a pickle factory.
That's right.
And they went on strike or something because I can't remember from the article what it was. I know when we were over in St. Henry's Hall at the time, and it happened during one of the summers leading up to 65 or something. He and then Father Tomey, I think, were asked to come in and help settle down the potential for some violence that was, I think, as I recall the story, one of the people in the labor pool out there said, sort of alluded to the fact that the pickle factory might go up in flames. And so Father Leo, Spanish speaking, obviously, was able to and was called on to go down there and help kind of act as a mediator and try and work things out. Exactly what happened, I don't know after that, but that's what I recall from that particular story.
Well, didn't
Well,
Father
it was
Tomey
Father-
have a brother? And his
Father
brother
Ed
worked in
Tomey.
the Spanish? Pardon me?
Father Ed Tomey used to be at St. Francis in Holland.
Yeah,
And
that's
how-
right. Yeah,
where the
okay.
big pickle factory is.
There was a big factory there too. Yeah.
Was Heinz owned it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Heinz.
So Michael, you went to this event in Fenville with Father Leo?
I can remember driving down to it, and there was a mass that was Spanish, and then we ate, and that's about the level of detail I can think of.
Okay, that's about it. Okay, because I don't remember going, and that's my hometown. So that it just blew my mind when I read this headline about Fenville, Michigan, Father Leo organizing some kind of event.
I kind of vaguely remember doing that as well. Didn't we go out for the little dinner or luncheon that we would go to different? Several of us would go to one family, and others would go to another family. Does that? I kind of remember sitting at a table with some. I assume, or as I recall, were members of the parish. Does that
Well,
sound like?
That
Is that-
sounds like it could have happened. I don't remember. I know it wasn't in a restaurant. Whether it was in a parish hall or family homes, I don't recall.
The summer I left the seminary in '68, I spent the first month in New York City, living at the Catholic Worker House there. But then when I came home, I worked for Father Leo. He had the use of a car, and I was tasked with going to all these migrant camps. There were probably a dozen of them in Allegan County, where they were not illegal immigrants. They were mostly from Texas, and they came up to help harvest the crops, the fruit, the vegetables, and I would stop at these camps, tell them what kind of services that the church in Douglas and Saugatuck had, and then go on to the next camp, and then ask them if they had any questions and how I could help them. I wasn't fluent in Spanish, but I did speak enough of it that we could communicate. So that was an interesting 2 months, that July and August, that I actually worked. It was a stipend. I didn't get paid a salary. I think I got maybe $100 a month and the use of a car to help out Father Leo that summer. So that was an interesting small job, but basically he was trying to provide services to the migrant camps. There were quite a few in Allegan County.
Frank, when you were in New York, were you in Dorothy Day?
Yes.
Okay.
I stayed up. I lived a whole month in New York City in the Bowery, and then I went up to her. She was staying at the farm. There's a farm that the Catholic Worker owns up on near the north of the city, and I went up and saw her.
Did you talk to her or meet
Well,
her?
I spoke to her. I didn't have any long conversation.
Oh, okay.
It was a big group gathering, and
Oh, okay.
but I didn't get to meet her, so that was
Impressive though.
Yeah.
You were pretty lucky.
I was, except living in the Catholic Worker Home. They had in the Bowery. They had a residence building. They own a number of buildings. They had a soup kitchen, and they produced a newspaper, and so they did put up students who would come in to help out. But the place was full of bed bugs. It's the first encounter I had with bed bugs. I got a lot of bites that summer.
Ooh.
That month. Not the end of the world. Survived.
Yeah, that's an interesting group, that day group.
Yeah.
They have a place called the Peace House. It's basically a neighborhood thing, basically run by two married couples, and
Yeah. Jim Hannock he did his alternate service. He got his conscientious objector status and didn't do service in the war, but he did it in Saginaw, I think. He did his alternate service working at a Catholic worker type house in Saginaw, Michigan, for a couple of years before he moved out to California with his wife.
What?
Yeah, it was a good organization. I'm still a member. I'm pretty much middle class now, and
No way I was gonna get this organized.
but it was an exciting time.
Oh.
Now,
Any
Pete,
of you, any of you
do you-
guys go to Vietnam? Anybody get drafted?
I didn't. I got drafted, but I didn't go to Vietnam.
I didn't end up in Vietnam, but I was there. I was in the army during the war, Vietnam War. I think
Okay.
the most, I don't know what the right word is to describe it, but I was in Alameda or Oakland, in the area where they ship everybody out in the Pacific.
Yes.
And I went to bed one night, and there were seemed like about 200 or so guys that it was just like an open gym with bunk beds. That's all we had in our packs. And I got up the next morning, and there were like about 6 of us, and the rest of them had left because they were all going to Vietnam. And that had a impact on me as far as just the effect of that, knowing that I wasn't going to go to Vietnam, but those guys were going. And I went through kind of the whole process just before you were assigned to go to Nam or wherever else you were going to be assigned. But it was.
I was drafted too, but I refused to go, so
Yeah.
I never went into the service.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
I was called into the principal's office at Catholic Central, 1960, and was Monsignor Jaeger, and actually it was Major Jaeger.
Right, that's right.
And he talked us into, he says, guys, I know the Vietnam War has 6 of us. He says, there's a war coming on Vietnam. And I do not know if they're going to go or not, but I want you to enlist in the National Guard. That way you'll be trained to go when the time comes. So we did. And we went through basic training for 6 months down at Leonard Wood and Orden, California. And then we got back home. They said, guess what? The Guard's not going to Vietnam, just regular Army. So we got out of that. But we spent 4 years of grilling and the Guard, doing what the Guard does. So I lucked out. So I talked to the commandant of Camp Grilling here about 3 months ago. I had a friend that passed away, and his sister married his commandant of Camp Grilling, and they turned Camp Grilling into a village like an Afghanistan village for training. And it became a very serious training camp. And I talked to the guy. He says, well, so far we've lost 15 soldiers from Michigan that have in Afghanistan. He says, I get a call once in a while, so-and-so got passed away, so-and-so got killed. And he was saying the same thing. He says, but the same thing, as soon as Trump became president, all killing stopped. We didn't lose anybody in the 3 or 4 years that Trump was president, because he told them, if you kill all my soldiers, I'll bomb the hell out of you. And they all backed off. So it was very interesting.
The only thing that I can remember from that era was that regardless of where you were, like at that point, I was living in Detroit, but I was still under the control of the Muskegon County Selective Service Commission. And while I was in the seminary, I had that 4D. Is that what?
4D.
4D, right. And then when I left and I was living down in Detroit, they reclassified me as, I want to say 1F or 1Y.
1A.
No, I was classified because of my diabetes. I was classified as unfit. And the other people in general that fell into that category were the mentally ill and mentally retarded, totally physically handicapped people that they didn't want to be touching for any kind of military service whatsoever.
That's
So
4F.
but there was even worse than 4F. I kind of remember that. It was a really unusual classification. I always got the impression that for 4F, if things really got desperate, they'd take you. But this was the totally undesirable, hands-off bunch of guys. So I never, I got my whatever that worst ever classification was, and I never heard from them again. But it kind of gets me back to the fact that I was under the auspices or the control of Muskegon rather than Detroit. People up there knew my dad, who worked in the IRS down the hall from the Selective Service Commission, and so
Wow.
it was like that kind of close knit. Probably, and that's probably the case with a lot of other guys in Muskegon. Probably people on the draft commission knew some of these guys or knew their families, so it was like we just weren't numbers that to call up to go into service. So that's my kind. So I never had to face that dilemma. I don't know what I would have done or not, but it was totally off limits, both for me and for others in that classification. I kind of remember Stash had mentioned that his dad had contracted or been diagnosed with diabetes either during his service or shortly after, and because of he had veteran status, the Veterans Administration would had to pay for all of his medical related things, and so that's why if you got into that one of those classifications where you might have had some physical incapacity, military didn't want to touch it because it was going to be a chain around their necks for years
Until you died, literally.
Mustache came out all right on that, but he would be on a terrible spot now because he was in the Black Sea. He talked about that once, where the Russians were.
Wow.
And now that what's their name's at war, Ukraine. That's one of the areas that they're fighting around. So I wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah, I mentioned that I refused to go into the Army, and I lived in Ann Arbor at the time, and the FBI came to arrest me, and I ended up in Detroit in the court system. But they decided that the crime I committed was disobeying a lawful order of F board in Grand Haven. Got me loose and told me to go to Grand Haven, Argonauts for the court hearing. So the jurisdiction where you sign up, yeah. So the jurisdiction you signed up for the draft board keeps you probably till the day you die.
I forget, what did they end up doing to you?
Well, I ended up pleading guilty. It's a long and humorous story, but they found guilty and assigned me to do unit service in Ann Arbor at the University of Michigan. And it's funny because the draft board would not allow me to do that because their point was to my life and make me go someplace else. The board said, stay in Ann Arbor and get a job there. So I got a job and I worked there 44 years. So it gave me a good career.
Yeah, I went to Steelcase in 65. I spent 35 years there. But boy, a lot of the guys I worked with left and didn't come back home. And those that did were changed. They were not.
Oh, sure. For sure.
They were changed. They, unbelievable.
Well, Monsignor Shaw would always come when you had your, what was it, 16th birthday or something. And he'd make sure that you registered for the draft. I remember that.
It was probably your 18th birthday, wasn't it? Or close to your 18th birthday?
18th,
Whatever it
yeah.
was. It
Yeah.
was 18. Okay, well, maybe his third year. But anyways, he'd come around and tell you had to go get drafted. So
No, I lucked out. I was born during World War II, too young for Korea, missed Vietnam, and of course then I was too old to go to the next two wars, so it's like a pinball machine going through there, you know. But all my neighbors fly the flag. I must have 6 neighbors that were in Vietnam, and my neighbor across at 6 o'clock in the morning, that American flag goes up, and at 6 o'clock at night it comes down. I've been here for 30 some years in this house, and he hasn't missed a day. Yeah, it's amazing. We only lost 50,000 men there. That was and then 75,000 have committed suicide out of that Vietnam War area. So a lot of us were very lucky we didn't get involved in that.
Well,
Now we got the Chinese coming. Yeah, I went to a 4th of July picnic down by Wayland here last summer, and we got talking to a bunch of people, and they've already been approached by the Chinese to sell their farmland. And they all said no. And then the government comes along and says, no, the Chinese, nobody sells, it's not for sale. So the Chinese they have gone to third parties to buy. Third party can buy the farmland, especially the corn land. And so they're doing that. The third party is buying the land, but they're being ruled by China. And now this whole big battery thing up north by by Mount Pleasant up there in that area that Ford want to put a battery plant up there. Well, that's backed by the Chinese. Ford don't say that no more. But when it first started off, they were bragging how the Chinese was backing them up on this battery plant. But the people up there have revolted, and I don't know where that's going, where it's headed for now. But that's our next enemy, guys, is the Chinese. They are here. There was four. I have a friend. I had a business, a cartridge business, and I dealt with New York and Washington. Anyway, they had 5 Chinese police stations in New York City to watch over their citizens. And every time the FBI, I had a friend in the FBI too. Friends of the FBI said every time they would go to the dry cleaners where the thing was, they'd be all gone. They close them down. Now they just closed down a Chinese lab in California that was making bad stuff. So our next war is going to be with China. I tell my grandkids, and they're AA student scholarship, I had to learn Chinese, learn to speak Chinese. Because 4 or 5 years from now, you're going to really need it. So we're into a 3rd World War. It's undeclared, but it's there. So if you know your friends, be on the lookout because that's coming.
Guys, I have
Well,
to
that's
go. Have a good month.
hang on before everybody takes off. I got to explain one thing here about the alumni updates that I send out. And this affects, I know, Pete in particular and some others. When I send those out, I get a report back from the MailChimp. That's what it's called. And it tells me how many things were received. And then it also tells me how many were opened, and then it gives me a list of people whose those messages bounced from. And I know that Pete is on that list. Now, the reason for the bounce is not clear to me because Pete, the messages have come back saying your some of those who bounced. Now, what I do is I kind of go through the list of bounces to see whether these people, whether it could be that that particular time their mail server wasn't working or was working slow. And so it was considered what they call a soft bounce. I go back and kind of see if any people had from that list had actually gone on and opened the thing. Sometimes I can go in and then I can see who exactly opened it. And by default, if you weren't on the list of those opened, you got it, but you didn't open it. So what I have been doing the last couple of times is there's another thing. I wait a couple of days and then I resend that out to people who were on the bounced list. And this last time there were, God, I forget how many of them were bouncing. But then that's sort of like a nudge to those people. We sort of see that you haven't opened your message, and that results in a lot more people opening the messages. But I have not been able to figure out why certain people continue to be on the bounce list. I've been sending messages out to some of them, asking whether they got it or whether, do you still want to receive it? And, some people, then will go ahead and open those messages. One thing that happened with Jerry Stein, somehow he got unsubscribed from the list, and it could very easily happen if you happen to go down to the bottom. It says right at the very end, there's a little message, unsubscribe from this list. If you hit that one by accident, that means you're going to be removed from the rolls. And I always contact people who have unsubscribed to make sure that they intended to remove themselves. So it's a little complicated. And for those people who get these strange messages from me in the couple of days after, that's the technology side of that newsletter. It's good in the sense that it tells me, have people actually been getting this messages, and also if they open it, they must be sort of interested in what they say. If they haven't opened stuff in a long time, then the system will sort of, eventually will take them off our subscription list. That's the technology side of that whole thing. And then I think Mike Murphy you were among those as well who didn't open it right away, and then he opened it at some point, maybe after the second one. It gets really confusing because sometimes it turns out that the people who are on, their message bounced actually opened it. So it's sort of like the subscription department where you got to figure out what the hell's going on with some of these, some of our people in there. So just so you know, if you haven't heard from us, usually at least once a month, you might want to get in touch with us to see if you missed anything. And I also put on the website, there's a whole section in there called Alumni Updates. I also go up there and on the website we'll put in most of the text of what the stories that were in the alumni update by email. Some of the things I don't put in, like the upcoming alumni Zoom meetings. I take those off from the old issue so that nobody goes in there and thinks, they might. But at any rate, that's the technology side of things. And if you ever get stuck and haven't heard from us, go to the website, and it's now stjosephseminary.com. We've got that as our legal name, although so you can go up there, check the alumni update section. And that's all the things that I have put up there were the recorders, all the back issues of the recorders that we've been able to locate. And I've created a new section for the yearbooks. So that's what's going on technology-wise. Now, one final thing in here is how often and when do we want to meet next?
I was thinking we should go every 3 months at the most frequently, be every 3 months.
That's okay with me. But that would be May then, right, Bill? 3 months
see.
is February.
Give us a chance. Give us
April.
a chance to remember more stories.
Yeah.
Right. May, So it would be-
Can we put on as a topic on that May gathering whether we want to meet face to face in August?
sure. Yeah.
Did Bill Bill Gebhardt last time we met with his house, he said we could do it again. Of course, we have to ask him.
Yeah, he's down in sunny Florida right now.
I know.
It'll give me time to lose a little. Give me time to lose a little weight.
Yeah, put that on the topic for the next meeting.
Right. Right.
Whether we
Summer
want
get together.
whether we want
Right.
a summer gathering or not.
Right. Right. And what I always do after the Zooms is to put there's an edited version, slightly edited of the video, and I post that on YouTube, and I also send it out as an alumni update so that anybody wants to see what been up to can do that. So I'll include that in there, that we would like to hear from people about the idea of having it every
3 months.
every 3 months. Yeah, I guess I heard from several people that say they kind of enjoy these chats because it sort of sheds light on parts of the lives of the lives of the saints, the lives of the alumni, and things that they didn't know about people in other classes, or other people's experience at the seminary, or people they know that others of us didn't know, things like that. So, okay, Pete's waving goodbye. Anything else before we head off?
Oh,
No, thank you, Bill, for your work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay,
Thanks, Bill.
great.
Nice seeing all you guys again.
Yeah, me too.
Same here. Thank you for
Take care.
sharing.
It's nice to be seen.
Yeah, it is.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Collect your stories for next time.